Hello my dear students, I am Professor Devashish Bose, Head, Department of Criminology and Forensic Science, Dr. Hari Singh Gaur Vishwavidyalaya, Madhya Pradesh. Today I am going to present a lecture of Scene of Crime Part 4th, BSc 3rd semester on the unit Criminalistics, which has been jointly prepared by myself and Mr. Giriraj Sharma, PhD scholar, a UGC JRF at Department of Criminology and Forensic Science, Dr. Hari Singh Gaur Vishwavidyalaya, Sagar. So let's begin our course module today. In module 1, we will be looking at Introduction to Crime Scene Reconstruction. Module 2 will be Reconstruction Process. Module 3, Stages of Crime Scene Reconstruction. Module 4, Types of Crime Scene Reconstruction. Module 5, Reconstruction in Firearm Shooting. Module 6 will be dedicated to importance of crime scene reconstruction, and finally module 7 will be conclusion. Now let's start with module 1, Introduction to Crime Scene Reconstruction. Dear student, now we will be studying about the crime scene reconstruction that depicts about those events that have occurred at the crime scene during the time of committing of crime. As we know that it is essential step for the investigating officer to examine the crime scene with his knowledge and experience. Thus, first of all, we will understand the meaning of reconstruction, which means to build or to create something that has had happened in the past, so you can get a complete description of what had happened. In addition to this, crime scene reconstruction is a process that demands to evaluate all physical and testimonial evidences to draw conclusion as to what had occurred. Moreover, as Gebert reminds us for homicide investigation, case resolution hinges on careful and intelligent examination of the scene. As we know that investigating officer always attempt to define all the necessary things which are relevant to the crime scene, such as what could have been happened, who came there, when and where it had occurred, how could have been occurred, why it happened. So investigating officer will reconstruct all of these questions and events. Therefore, we can say it is a most important step that should be performed at crime scene. But my dear student, like other techniques, it also has its own limitation, such as there is no standard by which we can test our ultimate result and conclusion. Let me put it in another way. Suppose that today a perpetrator buried a dead body in the ground. After 10 years, if the investigating officer will reconstruct this crime scene, one will get different result because the crime scene might have changed its identity with the passage of time. Thus, investigating officer will have different conclusion as they do not have the standards for comparison. Now we will try to understand the definition of crime scene reconstruction. The Association of Crime Scene Reconstruction, ACSR, defines reconstruction as the use of scientific methods, physical evidence, deductive and inductive reasoning and their interpretation to gain explicit knowledge of the series of events that surround the commission of a crime. In a simple word, we can say that crime scene reconstruction not only involves the interpretation, analysis of scene of crime reconstruction and laboratory examination of physical evidence, but also it includes different type of reasoning such as deductive and inductive, systemic and methodological studies, related information. So my dear student, as we know that crime scene reconstruction is not a new process, there is a significant history in forensic science that describes the role of crime scene reconstruction in investigation of crime. We can take the example of well-known icon of the forensic science, Hans Cross. We can say he was one of the first forensic authors who wrote about the crime scene construction in his book entitled Handbook for Investigating Judge. Moreover, Edward O. Enrich discussed the method of crime scene reconstruction. He stated that My procedure is to reconstruct the crime by visualizing the habits and actions of the criminal. I do this by using the debris that the criminal leave behind and relocating it with respect to the criminal episode. Charles O'Hara, another known name in criminalistic, wrote his first book, Fundamentals of Criminal Investigation, in the year 1956. He stated, subsequent to search of scene, an attempt should be made to determine from the appearance of the place and its object what actually occurred, and particularly what were the movements and methods of the criminal. The process of ascertaining the circumstances of a crime is known as reconstructing the crime. From a study of the evidence in this manner, it is often possible to make useful inferences which may be resulted into a reasonable theory. In reconstructing the action of criminal, the investigator should test his theory for logic and consistency. A theory should not be rejected merely because the investigator might not, under that circumstances, behave in a similar manner. No assumptions should be made concerning actions which are not supported by evidence. Thus, these all are well-known figures in the field of forensic science investigation. They have contributed a lot of things to forensic science investigation. One of them is crime scene reconstruction. So, my dear student, I have a very interesting thing that says that to solve a crime, you have to think in the way the criminal was thinking, and this is only possible by your active brain, active thinking, and reconstructing the scene of crime. This will help you to solve the crime. Now, we move to our next interesting basic principle for physical evidence and reconstruction. With this, we come to the end of Module 1. Module 2, Reconstruction Process. My dear students, now we will discuss about the crime scene reconstruction process that involves many steps such as recognition of physical evidence, identification of physical evidence, individualization of physical evidence, interpretation of physical evidence, and finally, the reconstruction of crime scene. So let's start this discussion. Recognition. As we know that each and every analysis in forensic science start with the recognition of crime scene and physical evidences. Moreover, it starts with the recognition and finishing with the reconstruction. One more thing is that it also has potential value, and it separates the certain evidence from those evidences which have no evidential value at a crime scene. Otherwise, the investigating officer would be confused, or one will be unable to collect, to preserve, to document, and to get the result, and ultimately fail to reconstruct the crime scene. As we have discussed previously about the crime scene procedure, once the investigating officer will recognize the physical evidence, then they should start the routine procedure. After preserving, collecting, labeling, and transferring the physical evidence at forensic science laboratory. In forensic science laboratory, forensic scientists will compare the identified object with the reference material or standards. Once the examination of physical evidence is carried out and the crime scene appearance has been studied, the case can be reconstructed. We can conclude that every type of reconstruction starts with the recognition of physical evidence and crime scene. Another thing which investigating officer has to keep in mind, there are certain conditions which can bind the crime scene in limitations, such as haphazard crime scene procedure, altering the physical evidence like pattern evidence, and contaminate the crime scene. So, investigating officer should also keep in mind what he has to do and what not. Now we will move for next heading, that is identification of the physical evidence. Identification. My dear students, now we are studying the identification of physical evidence at crime scene, because it is an essential step for reconstruction of crime scene. As we know that identification is a comparison process which utilizes the class characteristics of the physical evidence. Moreover, this comparison of the physical evidence can be done on the basis of physical properties of matter, biological properties, chemical properties and morphological properties. Size, shape, color, weight, length and width are the physical properties of physical evidence that help in their identification. Moreover, investigating officer can also use the morphological properties such as state of the evidence, source of evidence and origin of evidence. In addition to this, biological properties such as blood and biological fluids can be used for identification. Chemical properties. So these all are the class characteristics of the physical evidences that eliminate those evidences that has no evidential value. Individualization. Dear students, now we will talk about the individualization of physical evidence, that is the unique characteristics of the evidence among the same class or even same origin of evidences. As we know that the individual characteristics vary from one evidence to another. So, these all are the essential steps which would be performed before the crime scene reconstruction. Now, we will move to another interesting module which is Stages in Crime Scene Reconstruction. Module 3 Stages in Reconstruction. Dear student, till now we understood the reconstruction is based on certain parameters such as crime scene examination, forensic science laboratory analysis of physical evidence and other information to reconstruct the crime scene. Moreover, as we know that crime scene reconstruction also includes the different type of reasoning such as deductive and inductive reasoning, information from the victim, witnesses and crime scene statistical data, pattern analysis and crime scene investigating officers' observation for crime scene. Crime scene reconstruction is a complex job because investigating officer has to link different type of facts and gather the information from physical evidence. Nowadays, investigating officer can use the computer designed program for their work. These systems allow forensic scientist modeling and representation of laboratory analysis results. As we know that advancement in technology reduces the rate of error, now we will study about the stages in crime scene reconstruction. Crime scene reconstruction process is a scientific fact gathering process that completes in 5 separate stages. Stage 1 Data collection. This is the first stage of crime scene reconstruction in which investigating officer gather the information from different sources such as crime scene, victim, witness, physical evidence analysis, crime scene documentation. Stage 2 Conjecture. Investigating officer should keep in mind that before obtaining detailed information about the evidence, one should not reach at a particular conclusion. One should do all the possible explanation of the event and investigating officer must apply all the probability to the scene. Stage 3 Hypothesis formulation. Dear student, now investigating officer has to design the hypothesis. Therefore, one has to combine whole data that is based on the examination of physical evidence and visiting the crime scene. Stage 4 Testing. Once hypothesis is designed, hypothesis should be tested further to confirm or disapprove the overall interpretation of the hypothesis. Testing includes different comparison of the physical evidence with the standard one, analysis of physical properties, biological properties and chemical properties. Moreover, investigating officer can perform various type of examination for testing of hypothesis. Stage 5 Theory formulation. After testing the hypothesis, now the investigating officer should formulate the most related theory of event. So, one will need additional information such as condition of victim, position of the suspect, accuracy of the witness statement and other information about the circumstances of the crime as well as physical evidence. In addition to this, before designing the theory, investigating officer should verify each and every statement, analyze and interpretation of the result. One should test all the things from each and every point of view then one should go ahead and formulate the theory of event. It will be considered a plausible theory if one does not perform all these experiments, then the theory will not be considered a plausible theory. Finally, it is all about the various steps of crime scene reconstruction. Investigating officers should follow them. It's utmost important. Now, we will move for next another interesting module, that is type of crime scene reconstruction. My dear student, here we shall discuss about the crime scene reconstruction. Here I would like to make it clear one thing to you all, that it is a type of crime scene reconstruction depends on the nature of crime. For example, homicide crime scene reconstruction, theft crime scene reconstruction, or shooting crime scene reconstruction, etc. Moreover, it also depends on the question needing to be answered, the type of events that had taken place. Here, for the sake of simplicity, reconstruction of crime can be divided in following categories according to nature of crime. A. Suicide crime scene reconstruction. B. Homicide crime scene reconstruction. C. Arson crime scene reconstruction. D. Theft crime scene reconstruction. E. Robbery crime scene reconstruction. F. White collar crime scene reconstruction. G. Other type of crime scene reconstruction. Second will be physical evidence crime scene reconstruction. A will be blood or biological spatter pattern. B. Theft scene disturbance. C. Shooting pattern. D. Pattern evidence. Third, crime scene reconstruction of accident cases. A. Hit and run case crime scene reconstruction. B. Other means of transportation, trains, aeroplanes, ships, etc. Building and bridge collapse case crime scene reconstruction. Dear student, these all are the type of crime scene reconstruction. Now, we will move for next other interesting module, reconstruction in firearm shooting. Dear student, now we shall be studying how to reconstruct the firearm shooting crime scene and where crime scene investigating officer should start or where one should end. So, let's start with the help of case study. We all are familiar with the late President of America, John F. Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States, was murdered on Friday, the November 22nd, 1963. Ever since President John F. Kennedy was killed in 1963, questions have remained about whether Lee Harvey Oswald was part of a conspiracy to assassinate the president or a lone assassinate. The Warren Commission, the official government body appointed to investigate the shooting, concluded that Oswald acted alone. However, over the years, eyewitness account and acoustic data interpreted by some experts have been used to contend that a second shooter fired at the president from a region in front of the limousine, the so-called grass knoll. In arriving at its conclusion, the Warren Commission reconstructed the crime as follows. From a hidden position on the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository building where he worked, Oswald fired 3 shots from behind the president. 2 bullets struck the president, 1 bullet of which missed the president's limousine. 1 bullet hit the president in the back, exited through his throat, and went on to strike Texas Governor John Cornely, who was sitting in the jump seat in front of the president. In the 6th floor room at the Texas School Book Depository, police found a rifle with Oswald's palm print on it. They also found 3 spent cartridges cases. In 1977, the U.S. House of Representatives Select Committee on Assassination requests that the bullet taken from Cornely's stretcher, along with bullet fragments recovered from the car and various wound area, be examined for level of trace elements. Investigators compared the antimony and silver content of the bullet and bullet fragments recovered after the assassination and concluded that all of the fragments probably came from 2 bullets. In 2003, ABC TV broadcast the result of a 10-year 3D computer animation study of the event of November 22, 1963. The animation graphically showed that the bullet wounds were completely consistent with Kennedy's and Governor Connolly's position at the time of the shooting, and that by following the bullet's trajectory backward, they could have originated only from a narrow region, including a few windows on the 6th floor of the school book depository. This reference has been taken from Forensic Science, From the Crime Scene to the Crime Lab, 2nd edition by Richard Saperstein, year 2012, page number 150. With this, we come to the end of Module 5 and now we start Module 6. Module 6, Importance of Crime Scene Reconstruction. My dear student, now we will talk about the importance of crime scene reconstruction for the investigating officer. So let's start. It explains about the real things of crime scene, what had happened. It testifies the various statements and talks of victims, witnesses and suspect. It reduces the rate of error at crime scene. Crime scene reconstruction helps in the verification of report of physical evidence analysis such as true or false. This is a scientific examination of crime scene and physical evidence. This is the brief discussion of significance of crime scene reconstruction. Having understood this lecture, now this is the time to conclude what we have learned. So, we move on to Module 7, Conclusion. Dear student, in this lecture, we have understood crime scene reconstruction, types of crime scene reconstruction, stages in crime scene reconstruction of shooting case, and importance of crime scene reconstruction. After reading this lecture, you will be able to answer all these points. Investigating officer should use the crime scene reconstruction in criminal investigation. In this lecture, we also studied about the role of computer technology in crime scene reconstruction. Moreover, there are good software and hardware available by which we can make it more simple. With all these information, we come to the end of this important lecture on crime scene reconstruction. Do keep in mind what we have discussed today. It's time for you all to do some self-study. This is Professor Devashish Bose signing off. If you want to learn more and enhance your knowledge, you may log on to our website for MCQ, quizzes, LORs at www.cec.nic.in. Till then, goodbye.